Even before India's tour of West Indies commenced, a lot of cricket fans knew that it wouldn't exactly be what you'd consider an all-time classic two-test series. In fact, most people expected it to be a one-sided demolition, and based on how the first test went, that's exactly how most are expecting the second test to go as well. It's a well-known fact that West Indies cricket has declined considerably from the glory days of the 70s and 80s, and truth be told, West Indies cricket, despite sometimes being able to shine on the white ball stage, you remember that they won the World Cups of the T20 formats in 2012 and 2016, they've not quite been able to recapture the past glory, and in fact have slipped down further and further in relevancy, not only in ODI cricket but also in Test cricket. You remember that for the 2019 World Cup, they had to play the qualifiers and just about qualified. And for the 2022 T20 World Cup and the 2023 ODI World Cup, they didn't even qualify. They were unable to make it out of the qualifiers. It gets worse when you're looking at test match performances, because in both editions of the World Test Championship, West Indies have finished 8th out of the 9 teams, which is again hardly ideal and hardly even deserving of the kind of stature that they have in world cricket, because at one point a tour to the West Indies or by the West Indies was something that fans not only looked forward to but also feared, because that's just how good the team was. Now it's the other hand, no one really seems to care that much about West Indies Test cricket. So a lot of people have been asking the very simple question, is that what is it that can be done to actually save West Indies cricket? Some have suggested that you should probably, now is as good a time as ever to disband the West Indies, let all the island nations go their individual ways. And whilst that might be an idea that has taken a lot of root in the sense that you can understand, national pride isn't really the thing that West Indians play for, there is a debate as to whether or not this would work. And a person who weighed in on the, let's say, debate recently is former India captain Sunil Gavaskar. Now, of course, Gavaskar was in the era wherein, or he played in the era wherein West Indian cricketers were feared. And he had some rather interesting, albeit radical suggestions that, truth be told, were even a little bit, dare I say, stereotypical in their approach, or let's say in the tone in which he addressed it. Let's take a look at some of his comments. This is what he said, and this is his big suggestion, that my suggestion would be to increase the test match fees but don't give them central contracts. You are paid for your performance, then probably they will have a different attitude. Now, first off, as I said, it's rooted in a bit of stereotypical, let's say, attitudes, is in the sense that Gavaskar prefaces this by saying that a lot of West Indian players have a laid-back attitude to life, and that whilst it is necessarily something that is very natural to them, sometimes that can actually be detrimental to their performances when it comes to elite level sport. Now, he does add also that, this was never a problem back in the early days, because in the good old days of West Indian cricket, the players' quality was so good that they could afford to have that kind of an attitude, and that's not necessarily the case anymore. He also points out that players back in the day didn't quite have the financial cushion that a lot of players today actually do end up enjoying. In fact, this is what he had to add. He said that to the Clive Lloyds, the Malcolm Marshalls, the Viv Richards, Andy Roberts, Michael Holdings, the Garners, the wonderful era for West Indies cricket, every test match that they played was extra income. That last line is important. Every test match that they played was extra income. So it is an easy thing to do to actually say that, West Indian players don't really play for national pride, and truth be told, they are a bit money minded, and that is, of course, a stereotype that has taken hold a lot, especially so in the modern era, where there have been disputes between the West Indies Cricket Board as well as a lot of players. And due to the rise of T20 leagues across the world, you've seen a lot of players actually forego their central contract and become cricket freelancers of sorts. They'll be available to play all of the top leagues around the world, but they'll never be available to play for the West Indies. That is a stereotype that has taken root not just around the world of cricket, but dare I say even within the West Indies themselves, where a lot of players say, or a lot of people believe, that these guys are mercenaries who probably are only playing for the money. It is, of course, a valid take in some ways, because, of course, you are paid a lot more money playing T20 leagues the world over than you would be with a West Indies central contract and playing consistently internationally for the West Indies. But is this a view that's necessarily true? Is it true that players back in the day were less money-minded and more, playing more for pride and passion and nationalism, whatever it is you want to look at it? Well, according to one former great, or according to one former player who's definitely an all-time great of not just West Indian but even world cricket, that's not necessarily true. Who's that person? Well, the answer might surprise you. It's in fact Michael Holding. This is what Holding had to say on this entire debacle, and he said this right after the West Indies failed to qualify for the ODI World Cup of 2023. He said that people blame players and say they're just mercenaries. The people who want to say that forget the late 1970s when I and other West Indian cricketers went and played for Kerry Packer. That's an interesting point. Now, for younger fans who might not be familiar with who Kerry Packer is, Kerry Packer was the man who founded the rebel international cricket series that was known as World Series Cricket. Now, World Series Cricket only ever lasted for maybe 2 or 3 years. It wasn't very long, but a lot of the impacts from World Series Cricket can still be seen in the modern game, including day-night matches, the increased focus on broadcast or usage of broadcast, new advertisements, even colored clothing. Colored clothing really is owed to Kerry Packer's World Series of Cricket, because prior to that, you'd remember that even in the first few ODI World Cups, players were playing with a red ball and they were playing in white clothing. The idea of colored clothing came from Kerry Packer's World Cricket Series. And this is an interesting thing which even Holding points out. He's saying that back then we weren't paid much money either, and when the opportunity came that we paid big money by Packer, most of us took it. So this is not a new concept, let's say, and one that, truth be told, is not unfamiliar to just West Indies cricket. You realize that a lot of the top players at the time actually did end up going and playing for Kerry Packer, which let's say showed one significant problem, was that players at that time just weren't paid enough. And truth be told, if you ask me, and this is me giving a personal opinion, if you remove central contracts from the way or from West Indies cricket, or truth be told from any board, even the few players who are still choosing to play internationally will probably walk away from the game. I don't think having guaranteed income is a problem, because I don't think any of these players lack motivation. It's just that they know that when they go out there, they're representing their country, they're representing a team, they want to be putting up their best, but it's not unfair to be asked to be well remunerated or compensated for that either. So the issue with West Indies cricket runs a lot deeper than they're looking for money, or they are laid back, or that, you know, the best players only play for money. I think it's nothing wrong with playing cricket for money. At the end of the day, to a lot of these guys, it is a profession and one way for them to earn a living. They just happen to be very good at the sport, which is why they are okay being paid extra, even if it means foregoing playing for the West Indies. And with a lot of the players, even right now, I don't think there's a lack of application. It's just about a lack of ability, and it's not the players who are the problem. West Indies cricket has been in terminal decline for over 2 decades, and what you're seeing now is basically the results of that rot. So it's unfair to blame the players and say, oh, well, let's take away their central contracts, or they're all about money. I don't think that's necessarily true. Cricket West Indies, in fact, needs to have a good, long, hard look and figure out where exactly it is that the priorities lie. Are they okay being an underperforming nation that continues to, let's say, just flounder along? Do they want some radical changes? But the responsibility and the onus also lies with the cricketing ecosystem as a whole to ensure that a healthy West Indies remains a thing. Because again, the glories of the sport in the past are very much tied to this collection of island nations, and it would be a shame if it reaches a point that the West Indies end up going the way of the dodo and you only have nothing but just old fond stories to look back at when it comes to West Indies cricket. But it does seem like we're heading there right now. However, this suggestion maybe might just be taking things to the other extreme and might actually end up accelerating the death of West Indies cricket rather than actually helping them. Of course, that's just how I feel about it. My take is a little different on Mr. Gavaskar's. What is your take? You can let us know that in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap the bell icon, leave us a comment, follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. Don't forget to download the SportsTak app, and if you're already on the channel, go ahead and check out some other videos that we've done, and stay tuned to Sports Today for the rest of the day. We'll be bringing you lots of other videos from the world of sport. For now though, from my side, it's goodbye.